It was a typical busy Friday evening at La Bella, one of the most upscale restaurants in the city. The restaurant bustled with energy as waiters rushed between tables, delivering plates of gourmet meals to an affluent clientele. Among the staff, none was more eager to impress than Tyler, a young and ambitious waiter who had his eyes set on being promoted to manager. He knew that to get ahead, he needed to cater to the high-paying customers, the ones who tipped big and frequented the restaurant regularly. That night, however, someone walked in who would change his life forever. She entered quietly, without the fanfare that usually accompanied the wealthier patrons. Her silver hair was neatly combed back, and she wore a simple, outdated coat that had seen better days. Her shoes were worn, and her frail hands clutched a small handbag as if it was all she had left in the world. She seemed out of place among the glittering chandeliers and polished floors of La Bella. As the hostess seated her in a corner booth away from the main dining area, Tyler watched from a distance, his brow furrowing. This wasn't the type of customer he wanted to serve. She didn't look like she could afford even an appetizer, let alone a full meal. In his mind, she was wasting valuable table space for real paying customers. "Who seated her?" Tyler muttered under his breath to one of his colleagues. "Jenna did," his coworker replied, shrugging. "I guess we don't turn anyone away." Tyler rolled his eyes and decided he'd handle this one quickly. No point wasting time on someone who wouldn't leave a decent tip, if any tip at all. He straightened his tie, grabbed a menu, and approached the elderly woman with a forced smile. "Good evening," he said, barely masking his irritation. "What can I get for you tonight?" The woman smiled gently, her kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'd like to start with a cup of tea, please," she said softly. Tyler fought the urge to sigh. A cup of tea. Of course, this woman wasn't going to order anything substantial. She was probably just here to warm up and pass the time. "And then?" he asked, trying to speed things along. "Are you planning to have dinner?" She glanced at the menu, her fingers tracing over the leather-bound edges. "I'm still deciding. The menu is quite lovely." "Well, let me know when you're ready," Tyler said sharply. "But keep in mind, this is a high-end restaurant. Our prices might be a bit steep." The woman looked up, her smile faltering for a moment, but she didn't respond to his thinly veiled insult. "Thank you," she said quietly. Tyler turned on his heel and walked back to the kitchen, shaking his head. "Just my luck," he muttered. "Another one of those people who come in to pretend they can afford this place." He left her sitting there for a good while, serving the other tables that he deemed more important. He made sure to deliver wine bottles with flair and engaged in friendly banter with his regular customers. All the while, the elderly woman sat alone in her corner, quietly sipping her tea and watching the world around her. When Tyler finally returned to her table, his tone was impatient. "Have you decided yet?" he asked, his voice lacking the warmth he showed to the other diners. "I think I'll have the house special," she said after a pause. Folding the menu neatly and handing it back to him, he raised an eyebrow. The house special? That was one of the most expensive dishes on the menu. There was no way she could afford that. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. "The house special is quite expensive." The elderly woman's smile returned, though this time it seemed tinged with sadness. "Yes, I'm sure," she replied softly. "All right," Tyler said, not bothering to hide his disbelief. "I'll have it right out for you." As he walked back to the kitchen, he couldn't help but share his thoughts with the other waiters. "Can you believe this? The woman in the corner just ordered the house special. Bet she doesn't even know how much it costs. She'll probably complain when she sees the bill." The other waiters chuckled, and Tyler felt a surge of pride. He loved being the center of attention, even if it was for mocking someone who, in his mind, didn't belong. The night wore on, and Tyler continued to serve his tables, deliberately avoiding the elderly woman's section. When her meal was finally ready, he brought it to her with little fanfare, setting the plate down in front of her, without much eye contact. "Enjoy," he said flatly, already assuming she would struggle to pay. The woman ate slowly, savoring each bite, while Tyler kept an eye on her from across the room. Every few minutes, he glanced over to see if she was finished, eager to bring her the check and get her out of the restaurant. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she was done. Tyler approached her table with the bill in hand, a smug look on his face. "I hope everything was to your liking," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. The elderly woman reached into her handbag, pulling out a sleek, black credit card, one that immediately caught Tyler off guard. He hesitated for a moment, recognizing the exclusive card. Only the wealthiest individuals had access to it. Confused, he took it from her and processed the payment. When he returned with the receipt, he tried to compose himself. "Here you go, ma'am," he said, handing it to her with a forced smile. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" She stood up slowly, her frail frame making the movement seem almost painful. She placed the signed receipt on the table and looked up at him, her kind eyes locking with his. "You've been very patient with me tonight," she said softly, though her tone carried a weight he hadn't noticed before. "I know I must seem out of place here." Tyler swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "But you should never judge people by their appearance, young man," she continued. "You never know who they are or what they've been through." With that, she gently placed a card in his hand. Tyler looked down at it and froze. Eleanor Jameson, chairwoman of Monroe Enterprises. Monroe Enterprises was one of the largest corporations in the city, perhaps even the country. And Eleanor Jameson wasn't just any wealthy woman. She was a titan in the business world, known for her philanthropy and her humble beginnings. She had once been homeless herself, decades ago, before building her empire from the ground up. Tyler's face flushed with embarrassment and regret. I didn't mean," he stammered, but she raised a hand to stop him. "It's all right," she said, her voice kind but firm. "Just remember, kindness is free, and everyone deserves respect, no matter how they appear." With that, she smiled one last time and walked out of the restaurant, leaving Tyler standing there, clutching the card with trembling hands. In this story, we learn the powerful lesson that appearances can be deceiving, and kindness should never be withheld based on assumptions. The waiter's humiliation turned into a moment of self-reflection, reminding us all to treat everyone with dignity and respect, no matter their circumstances. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others.